beautiful souls, it's Kerry with a quick 3-card pull. I have shuffled the deck. We've got the High Priestess. Lovely. We had the High Priest the other day, so let's see what the High Priestess has got to share today. And we have Friendship. Okay, lovely. Friendship. And then we'll just see what the Angel card has. And we have the Angel of Relationships. Okay, so we got relationships and friendships. And then we have the High Priestess. So I am quite familiar with the energy of the High Priestess, and also that sense of going into the stillness and the silence. And I have been reflecting today on past relationships, friendships, etc. And so it's interesting that these ones have come up, because one of the things I needed to do when I was in a relationship which was causing me confusion, basically. And sometimes we form relationships with people where there's a trauma bond, and that's part of the karmic lesson to work out, and hopefully the sooner the better. But it doesn't mean that it's easy to necessarily let that person go, because those relationships can feel quite strong and intense and compelling, and it's like almost like this magnetic force that wants to keep pulling you back into it. And one of the things that I can say about that through experience is when we have that trauma bond, it's often our inner child that's bonded with their inner child, and neither party has the capacity to deal with the other person from the adult state of their being. And that's why they can become quite destructive. But it's a great mirror or reflection for us or something to reflect on in terms of the internal state. And the reason I'm saying that is because we incorporate within ourselves every version of ourselves that previously existed. So we're not just how we look today and how we sound today and the accumulation of everything. There are parts of us that will just flow into the next evolutionary stage that we are moving into. And there are parts of us that get stuck there, often from trauma. So where there has been some sort of childhood trauma, and it's like that little part of us gets locked up there, and the state of the trauma or the wound sends out a resonance. This is my experience now. I'm not a psychologist, so I can't say that this is a psychological assessment, but I do have my own gifts, and I do have my own wisdom through many years of scholarly undertakings. So if you do feel that you need professional advice, then go and see whoever it is that the authorities would recommend is the appropriate person. This is spiritual guidance. And what happens when there is these trauma patterns is that cycles continue until you go back and you heal that part of yourself that is sending out that resonance. It's almost like the pattern that happens where someone will have, you see a woman and she's been married 5 times and each man has been an alcoholic. Well, you go, oh, okay, well, that's not just bad luck. There's something there. There's some sort of internal resonance which is attracting this experience. And I know from my own personal experience, and this is not to blame anyone, and it's not to say, oh, woe is me, but as a youngster, my father was sent overseas in the military. And so he was gone for 7 months, and that was at a time when I was probably about 2.5 years of age, 2.5 to 3. So that bond there, that trust in other humans, then there is a shadow, if you like, that's cast upon that little part of yourself. There's trauma, there's separation. You know, it doesn't take a genius to work out that a little child that has had that experience is going to be impacted on some level. And often it's just like, have a lolly, shut up, get over it, and I've got other kids to think about, or whatever the family circumstances may be. I know that when my father went, there were 4 of us children, and one of them was my younger brother, who was a 6-month-old baby. And so my mother would have been under a lot of stress. My father would have been under a lot of stress because he was separated from the family to go off earn income so that he could provide for the family. So these are just the challenges of life, right? It's not like, woe is me, or I've got it worse than anyone. But when we see these patterns in our lives which reflect that kind of energy of the younger version of ourselves, where there was someone that comes in that can't meet your needs, someone that comes in who abandons you, someone who comes in and causes pain to you. You could go, oh, you know, people are this way or people are that way. Well, we can't control other people, and we can't change that until we change what's within. And so going into that part of ourselves, going into the part of ourselves that says, look, I'm back from the future, and I'm back to give you space, I'm back to allow you to express the feelings that you weren't able to express back then. Perhaps even holding yourself, or having a toy, a small cuddly toy that you can hold on to, provides that sort of the sense of well-being. And it's not like you have to be in that state every day. From my experience, what happens is the feelings will come up, and then there'll be a sense of settling, and then they may not get triggered again for a while. But it's a life's work. Healing is a life's work. It's not something you can go on a retreat for a weekend and, oh, golly gosh, you're healed. That's entertainment. People go on these retreats with people, and they're promised all this, that and the other. And I know that when I was 21, I went off on a healing retreat for people who'd experienced certain things in childhood. And the person who was running that retreat was another person who was taking advantage of others. And that's all I'll say about that. And so, you know, these repeating cycles, often it's past life karma that we've got with other people. So as painful as it may be to let some people go, sometimes that's the best thing that we can do for ourselves. They've often bonded with that wounded part of ourselves, and so the magnetic pull of wanting them back is very powerful. So just see it as, if you're having that experience, see it as evidence that there's work that needs to be done. And instead of chasing after that external thing, go within into the pain, go within and listen to what it is that part of you is trying to communicate. Something there wasn't, the needs weren't met, there was some sort of abandonment. And so as we ignore it and keep being distracted from it, we continue to abandon it. And it can be painful to go in there, it can be frightening. When we look at the High Priestess, we have these two pillars here, right? So it's entering into the darkness, entering into the unconscious, and entering in with this sense of trust. This is all part of the women's mysteries. The High Priestess is very much about tapping into the moon and the moon energies, the moon cycles, but also those cycles within ourselves. And so in the moon card, which is the 18-9, we see these pillars again, and we see the dog and the wolf sitting in front of them. And I talked about this the other day, and those cards those figures represent fears, but they can become our allies. And so this is about listening to what is being drawn to your attention, coming up from the surface, coming up from the unconscious. And once we know that, we can stop attracting things from the external world which continue to not have our needs met, because we're meeting our needs ourselves. So it's like we've grasped up that little part of ourselves and said, no more. There'll be no more of that. Now I'm here, I've got you covered, and I'm going to look after you because of what happened when there was no one there for you. All right? Now, we're born into families, we have parents, etc. We have siblings, some of us. We have other family members around us. But look, on this path, we really walk alone. No one else can walk your journey for you. No one else has your experiences. And so realizing that you are your own rescuer, if you like. You are your own healer. You are the one that has the capacity to go back there and do that work. And as I said, sometimes the intensity of that can feel quite strong at certain times. And if you're a young person it's great to do it before you have your own children, because once your children come along, you may not have the space to have it. Okay, so as I was about to say, that sometimes the planetary energies can trigger off these feelings at certain points, particularly at Saturn, as Saturn moves around from the placement of where it was when we were born. About at the age of 7, it's in the first Saturn square, then we have the opposition, then 14 is the opposition, 21 is the second Saturn square, and then about 29 is the Saturn return. So Saturn is about trials, it's about lessons, it's about patterns repeating and learning from those patterns. Okay, so that's my little explanation about the High Priestess. Another day I might come up around and talk about her slightly differently. I think it's all in the context of what's going on. So friendship. If we look at friendship, we look at the 11th house in an astrology chart, or the sign of Aquarius, because it's about relationships that aren't intimate. We have friendships, we have relationships, okay? The characteristic about relationships is that people tend to make a commitment to each other. They tend to have intimacy as part of that commitment. And so there's a merging of energies. There's a bond that's formed between the two people. In the marriage vows, there's actually a commitment really to see the other person as an extension of yourself, and to look after the other person as if they are yourself. So you make those vows, you know, in sickness and health. So it's not just, you know, a fair weather friend, but you're there when the going gets rough. You're there. Not that you take on their burdens, but you walk with them as they carry their own. Friendships are a little bit different. We can have great friends. We can have friends that come and go, and we can have friends that are casual. So if you're lucky enough to have good friends, they can be as sustaining as a really good relationship. Often friendships are about whether we have things in common and what it is that keeps us wanting to see each other. You might have a special bond with a friend that perhaps you've had a few lifetimes with, and so, you know, I've had friends when I've met them, it's been like, wow, this just feels right. It doesn't feel forced, it feels really easy, and you just like being in each other's company. You get each other. All right, so darlings, just to summarize, the High Priestess, the friendship card, so 11th house in an astrology chart is where you would find the kind of friends that you have, depending on the planets in the chart or the planet that rules that chart. That will tell you something about the kinds of friends you're likely to attract and the lessons you'll have around friendships. And the relationship card, we look to the 7th house in the astrology chart. And then for the beginning part of the relationship, which we would call the romance, we look to the 5th house of the astrology chart. The ruling planets, where they're placed, how they aspect to others, and also we would look at any planets placed in those houses. So if you're interested in having an interpretation done of your astrological chart, it's certainly something that I can help you with. And yes, I'll continue to try to do my daily oracles. Once again, I've created a long one when I thought I was doing a short one, but I do have Mercury conjunct Jupiter and Mars in the 12th house, so I always have a lot to say. Take care, lovelies.